Hey, this is Christy. So I'm going to be interviewing two people. One will be my aunt. The second one is going to be Officer Cotton. And something that I think I might get some of the responses might be something like how they envision the towers falling. And yeah, so we'll get right into it.
Okay, I am here with Ada Fitch, also known as my aunt. Do I have your full consent to record this interview?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to be asking you a series of questions, about 10 questions on the 9/11 incident that happened in 2001. So, first question I want to ask you is, where were you on 9/11 2001, and how old were you?
Okay, I was in an upstairs apartment with my husband and my son and another family member that was staying with us at the time. And actually the other family member was the one that said, the Twin Towers got hit, like yelled at us, and we came in there. We seen the second plane supposedly hit, and went through, went out supposedly, and then collapsed little by little by little by little, which doesn't make sense for a plane hitting it. But anyway, yeah, and I was about 25.
Second question, what are some images that still stick in your mind?
Again, the way that thing came down, like little bit at a time, like little controlled explosions. It stands out in my mind because it didn't make sense.
What changed in your life after the whole incident?
Not much changed my life personally, but that very day that it happened, I actually called some mosques in our local area, and I told them, I said, I know exactly what's going to happen. People like you are going to be blamed. People are going to say horrible things about you because of something that happened that had nothing to do with you. I'm not one of those people. Well, later, my husband and myself and my son got invited to a dinner that was honoring people like me that did that, and other people that kind of stood up for the Muslim community.
And do you think 9/11 could have been prevented in any way?
Well, it depends on what theory you're going with as far as how it happened.
Do tell. At least one.
Well, my theory, again, is inside job. So I suppose either everybody just takes their power back and just voids government, or we deal with corruption in government.
Can you describe exactly how you felt when you found out what was going on?
Well, consider the news. I don't think really told us what was going on. It would be years later that I seen things that basically led me to believe that the official narrative wasn't the truth. So I felt pretty betrayed by those who were supposed to be protecting us.
How and when did you learn about the attacks?
Well, pretty much right after they happened, right as they were happening. But again, I don't believe the narrative that they were saying then, as far as what exactly they think, or who exactly they think did it.
What are your thoughts on how you think it may have affected law enforcement?
Well, are you talking about just local law enforcement, or are you talking about like federal?
Generalized, like, I would say everything, really.
Okay. Well, I know they took away more of our freedoms with like the Patriot Act, and that made it where they could just kind of suspend habeas corpus and stuff like that, where you really don't have as many rights. And there's been so many since then, other than the Patriot Act, that's doing the same thing.
How did 9/11 affect your thoughts on the U.S.?
That the United States thinks that they are the police of the world, and they're lying to their own people.
What did you first think was happening when you first learned about the attacks?
I really didn't know what to think. I did kind of buy into what they were saying was going on, but I also didn't believe that Muslims close by had anything to do with it, like in our general neighborhoods. So,
and my last question is, what was your immediate reaction from seeing the news, whether it be physical or emotional?
I mean, the news kind of removes you from things, like, you know. So, I was shocked, but at the same time, not really, because I mean, we see things all the time all over the world going on. Although I'm starting more and more to believe some of those things aren't what we're being told they are.
Well, it's been a good interview. I thank you for letting me interview you.
You're welcome.
So I am here with, state your name.
John Cotton.
And do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yeah, yes you do.
Okay, so I'm going to be asking you a series of 10 questions. Answer to the best of your ability. And the first question that I'm going to ask you is, what were you doing on 9/11, 2001, and where were you?
I was on patrol. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning, which was Officer Mitchell at the time. We got called to a suspicious person at 20th and 8th. It's kind of funny, I remember this exactly. The gentleman was high on meth and everything, and he was acting a little out of sorts and everything. And so at the time we were dealing with him, he started complaining about chest pains. So we then called the paramedics. They responded, and because of his chest pains, they then took him to the hospital and everything. Whether he actually had them or not, or just didn't want to deal with the police officers, it's kind of common for them to say they have a medical issue when they're trying to avoid being arrested. So after that, we were notified by dispatch that 2 planes had crashed into the Twin Towers. And luckily it was a slower day, because after we dealt with the gentleman at 20th and A, we then went back to the police department, which was joined with the fire department, and there all morning we watched the news. We watched all the updates and everything, and we didn't have any calls until after noon or so. So we were actually able to stay and see what was going on firsthand, live news.
And part of that actually answers my second question, which is, when and how did you first learn about the attacks?
Yeah, we just started getting the MDCs. 2000, we've had MDCs in our patrol cars for a while and everything, so it's kind of interesting. Dispatch didn't come over the radio and tell us. They would text everybody that was on duty that day, and that 2 planes had crashed into the Twin Towers and everything. And so dispatch kept us up to date on what we need to know for our local agency and everything. But we were fortunate to be a smaller department, and being the type of day in that early morning, we were able to go back and like I say, we were joined with the fire department. They had TVs, you know, and so we were able to keep up with live news on what was happening on the East Coast.
And what were you feeling at the time of the attacks?
Anxiety. We didn't know what was going to happen. Animosity, anxiety, or whatever. We didn't know what was happening, what was going on, and who did it. And so it's kind of like what to expect next, because we didn't know. And so maybe we were kind of walking on eggshells that day.
How did you react immediately after finding out the news?
Shocked. I'm just kind of thinking this couldn't happen. You know, 2 planes crashing into the Twin Towers. At the time we didn't know exactly why the planes crashed into them either. And so if I remember right, it was kind of like, what could cause this? You know, obviously it appeared to be on purpose and everything, but we just never knew for sure until later on they talked about it being a terrorist attack. And that's when terrorism kind of all came into my train of thought, was after the Twin Tower attacks. We always knew the Trade Center had been attempted blow up bomb in the basement or something in the previous, but we didn't. Terrorism never really struck me until that point.
What images and or emotions still stick in your mind to this day?
Oh, the towers falling, watching them on TV fall and everything. The firemen and police officers covered in soot from the towers. It's still kind of hard to talk about.
How did the incident affect your overall opinion of the U.S.?
It got better. The U.S. it made me feel very stronger because we definitely went after the terrorists and everything, and I felt we had a good, safe country to live in after our support for in going after the terrorists like we did. I felt more patriotic.
How did your personal life change, and what effects did it have on you?
How did I became more protective of my family, more alert of my surroundings, lived in town, walking to work, to the police department and everything, living a block away from where I worked at, but I worked in the whole town. I didn't always carry a gun off duty. I'd walk down to the store, do whatever, and I didn't always have my gun on me, but things changed then to where because we had the Portland 6 or Portland 7 out of Rock Pit, where Skamania County deputy went and confronted or made contact with 6 or 7 individuals that were target practicing, and they had AK-47 semi-automatic rifles and everything, and it turns out they were all in training to be terrorists, and there were some convictions going on over in Portland at the federal court, and the deputy that was doing it, him and I have gone on several calls together. So just we're at the border of Skamania County, so quite often I'd be up in Skamania County contacting the suspect or some of the subject on the case, and so I'd have them contact me, and we'd both go together because I was in their jurisdiction, and also for cover. So
what are your feelings when you think about 9/11 now?
it was a sad, tragic incident that happened, and I feel our country needs to grow stronger again, which we're not right now. I feel we need to make sure that we protect our country. I'm still very, very patriotic and everything. I fly my flag proudly, along with the Thin Blue Line flag. And if my neighbor across the street has issues with it, that's fine. They can't have. I have no issues with them, even though they maybe think different politically than what I do. They're my neighbors, and I'll still do what I can to help them.
How did the attack affect your line of work? Did anything change in any way?
Yeah, our training, our awareness to groups, one of the larger groups of people come around. It's been long enough ago, and I've been retired long enough. Seems like we kind of switched from terrorists to active shooter scenarios, but then that kind of all falls in together. You got active shooter scenarios in schools, but you also have active shooter scenarios in malls or at sporting events and everything. So which are all kind of terroristic too. So it's more training, more working together, teamwork. Used to be, it would be you waited for somebody to, then you went in, but now it's you go straight in, and then people will come follow you, go towards the shots fired and stuff like that. Like I say, it's been a while since I've been to active shooter training, in 5 years, 6 years, and everything. So it was definitely more intense as far as knowing your surroundings. That's the biggest thing, knowing your surroundings and people's activities and the way they're acting. I'll see somebody walk into a restaurant with a sidearm with open carrying, and I could I get alarmed? Sure, but it all depends on how they present themselves. If they're sitting there like a police officer carries a gun and everything, like it's nothing, it's there, it's part of their whether it be you carry a case for your cell phone or whatever. If they're acting nonchalant and everything, or if they're constantly touching it and kind of acting really weird about the way their movements, it's going to change my thoughts about how they're carrying it. And so just being alert of your surroundings and people's mannerisms tells me a lot. My gut instinct said a lot. It really did.
Do you fear another attack or think 9/11 could have been prevented in any way?
Yeah. Well, we always learn from our mistakes, and hopefully we learn from our mistakes. Could have been prevented? I don't know if it could have or not. Do I fear another attack? Yes. I feel there's enough information, and especially watching the days with the assassination attempts on former President Trump and the activities and the protesting going against the Israelis. I feel there could be another attack. I feel, and even the FBI chief guy, director, he's even has said there's been a lot of threats that come towards our country and everything, and we do all need to be more vigilant and calling things into the police and notifying the authorities if they see something that doesn't seem right. So yeah, I really do feel there could be. I hope there isn't. I hope not, but I just don't know.
And that concludes our interview. I thank you for letting me do this interview with you.
You're welcome.
Hey, this is Christy again. So, I was right on them saying, like, them visioning how the towers fell and stuff like that. And I am very impressed on how different the views were from my aunt to Officer Cotton, and how much more detail that Officer Cotton gave than my aunt did. And how my aunt, she is a little crazy though, so she kind of sounded like a theorist. I don't know if I said that word right, but a theory type person. And Officer Cotton gave a lot more like logical, easier to follow type answers. But that was my 9/11 podcast.